How's it going, everybody? This is John with Crippled Fox Gaming, and this is going to be my first video on how to put some of this neat ruined terrain together that Mantic has supplied for the Vanguard skirmish game. This is an ABS plastic, so you can glue it together with your regular model glue or the Citadel plastic glue, which is what I've got here today. I'm going to clip these things apart. This is kind of an idea of what you get. A bunch of flat pieces and some end pieces, some corner pieces here. You have to put those together, make a bunch of angle pieces, and if you get really inventive, you can, I'll show that some other time. So I'm going to clip these all apart, and I will be right back. And I'm back. I've got the little pieces that you glue them together with. The connectors are right here. You'll notice they have these little nubby things on them. That's kind of lines up where these are supposed to go. Flip that around, and they'll fit like that. Fit pretty flush with the bottom. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take some of this Citadel plastic glue, and I'm going to smear it all over this side. I'm going to get it down into where those little nubbins go. I'm going to do that here. I'm going to do it on this side. I'm going to put that together like this, kind of lining that up as even as I can with the bottom. And I'll hold it there for a few seconds, as you want to do it. This is the thinner, that plastic glue. If you have like the tester's glue, you can just hold it together and kind of set it aside. I'm going to set that there and let that dry a bit. I'm going to do another long piece here. I'm going to line that up like that. Same thing with this one. You're going to smear a bunch of glue on this thing. Put that on the same side. And I'll let those set a while, let that glue get a nice, do its little chemical reaction thing that it does so well. And I will let that sit and dry for a little bit before I put the other side on. And I'll show you some of the other things I do once I get these things put together. Same thing with these small ones. You'll notice there's a little bit of an overhang. How well you can see that. There we go. This is the first time I'm doing this, so thanks for bearing with me. I'm going to clip that off here once it dries on there, once I get the other piece put on there as well. I'm going to just set that on there. I'm going to line that up on that side. Get that side nice and even with the little triangular nub piece in this thing. So I'll set that there, get it a good grip, not to glue my fingers to it. My fingers aren't made of plastic, but it likes to bite them anyway. There we go. Get this one as well. And the angle that they have, this actually fits pretty well. It fits fairly flush with the connector, so the angles are all pretty well done. There might be a little play when I put that other side on, but nothing a whole lot of glue won't cure. And I will let that sit, and I'll be right back. Oh boy. Hey, guess what? I'm going to have to learn how to edit. So here we go. This side's... Okay. Well, I'm talking, so...
What?
I'm actually recording. That's good. I'm going to do this other half now. I'm going to do the same thing with this, except this I'm going to put the glue on both sides. Get a little bit better of a grip on this. And I'll do the same thing as I did with the other one. I'm going to just insert this in there. Like I said, it fits pretty well at a right angle. I can't tell if that's out of focus or not, so I'm going to mess with that thing here. There, I figured out the focus problem. Focus pull, man! I'm going to do the same thing with this side. There's a lot of smear on this and in the little areas to glue this thing together. And I will... Pretty much I'm just going to do this. This is basically just showing you how all this stuff goes together. It goes together fairly well, like I said. And the little end connector pieces that you can kind of see there, you can clip those to any height you want if you've got some pieces that are a little bit shorter, a little bit taller than others. And like I said, they fit pretty well, pretty good right angles. And you can always adjust them if you want, if you've got some kind of weird shape. I'm going to try this one with just putting the schmutz on there. And this one, like I said, it's got a little bit, that angle piece is a little tall. I'll get this down sooner or later. There we go. You can see that, or you can leave it as kind of a corner piece for when you're doing this. So hold that down, set that at a right angle. This one, I'm doing what I was supposed to do, like I'm showing you how. And just schmutz it up there and schmutz it up here. And what also I may show you is how I kind of get these end pieces that aren't quite as even, like this. This little piece is not quite flush with that. Maybe you can see it, maybe you can't. I'll show you. There we go. That gives it a little better angle. Let's get a little bit of piece sticking up there. And I will just clip that down with my pair of ups here. And I will let those set, and I'll be right back. Now that these are dried, I'll kind of show you how I clip these things down to get them a little bit, look a little more aesthetically pleasing, rather than leaving this little piece here kind of sticking out there. I'm just going to take my little plastic sprue cutters, and there's stone texture along this, and what I'm going to do, I'm just going to cut chunks out of this thing until it looks a little rocky, and I'm going to kind of cut this here, cut a notch out of that. I'm just going to take this, I'm going to just basically pry this piece out, and then you can see that very well. It's going to focus on me. Focus, if I can figure out how this thing works. There we go. See if I can focus that a little bit better for you. A little bit better. Nope. I am really not happy with how this thing works. Kind of, there we go. That's a little bit better. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to kind of clean that up with just a file here. I'm just going to kind of cut. I'm going to cut a little notch in the bottom of that, at the bottom of where that stone would be. Kind of smooth out that that tapered edge. But first, I'm going to grab my cheaters because I can't see without them. And then I'm going to do the same thing. There's a little piece down here. I'm just going to kind of smooth that out. And then if you've got a Dremel or something, you can also use like a little edge piece for that. I try to not get my shiny head in here so people can get a glint off of all the lights I've got sitting here at the roll top desk. So I'm just going to kind of smooth this out just a little bit, just get a little bit edge on there. And you can leave it the way it is because it's supposed to be kind of rocky and broken looking and kind of crappy looking. So you know, I think that'll do it. There, that's a little bit better. And with this one, see that piece is just a little bit long. I'm just going to clip that off right here in the little edge on there. And it just pulls right off. And then I'll fill that in with a little bit of flock later. Same thing with this. This edge is a little bit long. The difference between that and that. I'm going to throw a little flock in there later and try to cover up some of the multitudes of sins that you'll probably see here, and I'll show you how to fake it pretty well. It's good enough for tabletop stuff. It's not going to win you any awards, but it'll look good, and people will come up and say, "This looks awesome," and you'll say, "Why, thank you very much." I'll learn how to do that, so I'm going to tell you what I'm going to do next. These are all pretty much put together. I mean, you got four corners. You got a house, or you got a church, or you got a stable. You got whatever you want with them, and I will. I'll go through the magic of editing. I will go prime these, and I'll show you how to paint them. I've got all my paints. I've got primarily Reaper stuff. I've got shadowed stone. That's kind of a nice dark muddy gray. I've got a Secret Weapons rubber highlight. That's a little bit more of a standard gray. There's a rainy gray. That's pretty close. That's a Reaper Master Series. Bone Shadow, Polished Bone, and the Aged Bone triad here. And that's what I'm going to use for these. It's going to be basically just like a concrete field, a gray stone, granity, limestoney kind of looking thing. It's going to be quick and it's going to be dirty, and I'm going to be done. You know, PDQ. I'm going to start. I've primered these all black because it's a lot easier. You can get your shadows a lot better. You don't have to go over and wash stuff quite as much. But I'm going to use. I've got my two trusty, really wide brushes here. They're very dry. I'm going to try to keep them that way. these things I'm going to just, I'm going to start out with a shadowed stone, which is a little bit less than the black. Get my handy dandy nose poker thing here to get that paint going again as it sits on my shelf here. I've kind of watered this down. I'm getting as much as I can. I've had these paints since Reaper Minis first came out with their paint line, and this was a triad, some gray triad that I got a long time ago, and it's still kicking. I'm gonna just take my nice wide brush here and get all the excess paint off that thing, and I'm gonna go against the grain, the way the stone it lays this way. I don't want to get it kind of down into the cracks quite as much. I'm going to brush a lot of that off, and I'm just going to kind of, maybe, I'm looking at it now, it may be a little too watery, but it's kind of lightening up that that stone a bit. I'm going to kind of cover up some of the mistakes I've made here, and I'm just going to really lightly go over all of these surfaces, kind of leaving a little bit of that black showing through. I'm not liking how this is turning out. So here's what you're going to see, warts and all. So this is kind of lightening up that super black, so it's not quite as black. I don't know how much of that you can see. So I'm going to go over the tops, and I'm going to get my fingers nice and painty so I can remember to not rub my eyes with them or you know, pick something out of my teeth. So I'm going to kind of just keep going. I'm going to just go a little bit higher each time. I'm going to leave that kind of damp. And I'm going to go on this next one. Actually, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go ahead and do this one while we're sitting here. Everything's sitting around. Like I said, everything I'm going to do is going to be really quick and really dirty, because I am all about getting it done and getting it on a table. First draft, last draft, get it out the door, that kind of thing. I think my little, and these old painters, these old paint bottles, if you still got them around, the little agitator in there is a little tiny pewter skull, because Reaper knew their audience at the time. They changed their the look of their bottles because they were having trouble putting them in the, like, Hobby Lobby and stuff. They didn't want stuff that was called Reaper and stuff that had little skulls on it. So they said, you know what, we're going to make this a little more user-friendly. So a little less, a little bit better, wider market, because their paint, I really like their paint. It's really good. It's got a lot of pigment in it. Their HD series, I think, is just about the best. So I'm just going to keep talking while I'm painting this thing here. And it is a little watery. I don't know what's happened since the last time I used it, but I'm going to soldier through and just keep putting this on there, making it a little bit, lightening up that black. I'm going to do this, a little bit on this stuff, a little bit here, a little bit. I may go back and do this frame a little lighter color or something as well. How long is it going to take? So I'm going to let that dry. I'm going to set that over here. Since this one is probably dry, put this here. I'm going to go with that rubber highlight here. It's a little bit, it's almost kind of a, oh, it looks like there might be a little bit of blue in this. Maybe from the tires, from the highlight on a tire. So yeah, it's a little bit, there's a little bit of, it looks like it might be a little bit of a grayish blue hue to it. But it'll be the same thing. I'm just really lightly going over all this stuff to kind of pick up. And then I'm just going to keep going. You know, I've got washes that will cover up a multitude of sins on these things. I didn't. There's a little bit of a mold line along this edge. I didn't fix that because, quite frankly, I'm just kind of kicking this thing out the door and going to see how this works. It should work out fairly well. And a lot of times, if you want to, you can go back with a contrasting color like a brown or a green and go over these individual stones, make it a little bit look more like a milled field stone kind of thing. And that'll be kind of nice. But this, like I said, this is a real basic paint job, and I'm going to wash over that with some of Citadel's the gloss. I think it's Agrek Earthshade, which is a really nice dark. It's not black, but it's a nice brown. really dark brown, dark grayish brown that I use for a lot of highlight or a lot of shadows, and it goes right where it's supposed to. The gloss is kind of it's a little more viscous, I think, than some of the other stuff, and it goes where it's put, and it stays where it's supposed to. And this, like I said, 90% of my terrain painting is really quick and really dirty. I'm not interested in winning any sort of awards for it. I like getting it on there, getting it on the table. I'm not getting in close with the camera and taking, ooh, here's this tiny little eyeball thing I pointed in here. Nope, don't care. I just want it on the table to look good. I'm going to go up with the rainy gray. That's a little bit, yeah, I'll go ahead and use this. I've also got, I might have to grab like a khaki or something. That'll be kind of a nice light brown. I'm sure there's people that are just screaming into this thing going, why are you mixing all your paints together? It's like, well, nature doesn't, unless you're a butterfly, nature isn't too picky about how your colors go together, I don't think. I'm sure there's some color theory to stuff, but, I'm just messing about. And I'm not covering this whole thing. I'm just getting a lot of just the highlights and trying to just keep it really basic kind of color. Getting it a little bit lighter and a little bit lighter each time I go over this. So the last ones will be just enough to kind of pick out bits of where the light's going to hit on the top of these bricks. But these bricks are pretty. There's not a super whole lot of definition in these things, but there's enough that it'll look good, once you get it on your table. And I really like it. The easier something is to paint, the more I like it, and the better the detail. I am not a person who can go into a terrible mini and make it look great. If it, the mini does half the work, or the sculptor does half the work, and I will shake them warmly by the hand whenever I do it. I'm just going to paint this. This should be fairly quick. So 13 minutes in. Like I said, I didn't do the little mold line up there. Not doing that. I'm going to go then. I'm going to go with the aged bone. That's the next up in this trilogy. I think that's a little bit gloopier. That'll be good. So I'm going to go with that. This. Like I said, people are probably fast forwarding over 90% of this since it's me prattling on and on about stuff. But see, it's kind of this isn't very. It's hard to see with this. This light. I don't know how well that light's going to show. But it's getting a little bit more defined. Maybe this white will kind of, or this, the aged bone, I think that's what I said I'm using. I'm just going to kind of, just like I said, I'm going perpendicular to the way the stones are laying to kind of get a little bit more of that. Go on this up there as well. Like I said, I'm letting the sculpts do all the heavy lifting on this. And it's going to be, I'm not Bob Ross, but I do like making mistakes. Don't, mistakes. Let them show through. Let your, some people like little birthmarks on their minis, or spots and bits of things where you can kind of tell. Say this was painted by a person, and it didn't come down from on high. I'm not, like I said, it's just kind of how I paint. And I'm probably doing more talking now than I do in a month of Sundays, so thanks for holding on. And I'm going to I'll leave a few spots a little unhighlighted there. And maybe I'll go back over it with some other kind of, like I said, I'll get a khaki or get like a lichen green. What have I got? A pale lichen, I think is what I've got. I don't know if you heard that. I've got a pale lichen. I think I will go over that. I've got a pale lichen here that I'm going to sit here and shake and make all sorts of rude noises with this paint. But it's a little bit, I've had it sitting here in this nice, yeah, that's nice and gloopy. My paint rack from Ironheart Artisans, which is, it stores them all this way, which I kind of like better because all your paint's going to the tip. It's not going to end up here, so you have to shake it for 10 minutes. Get your little robo shaker or whatever you're going to do. I'll go back to this. See a little bit of this, a lot of this, a lot of that. I don't know how well that's going to show up on that camera because my lights are not the greatest. I've got 4 different lights. I've got an LED, I've got a fluorescent bulb, I've got an incandescent bulb, and then I've got this other thing that I kind of jerry-rigged over here. So I'm going to just do this, a little bit of this, a little bit of that. And, you know what, that doesn't look too terrible. I think I kind of like that. I think I'm going to stop after this so I can kind of show you what. Like I said, I'm not going to... well, we'll see. A little bit of this, a little bit of dry brush. It's all dry brush. You know, you get most of your paint off, and then you kind of go over it. And that is not... I don't know how well that can pick that up. I'd have to autofocus, and I'm really having issues with it today. But it's lighter than it was. And then there was something that I wanted. The next thing I'll show you is I'm going to grab some of my the Citadel gloss. It's a wash basically. It's a really thick, nice viscous wash, and I will be right back and I'll show you how that works. Okay, I may have lied a little bit. I'm going to show you just the difference between these basic things. Here is the initial thing. It's just that gray plastic, and then I did it. Got the black primer on it. Got it to there. And then I kind of went back over it and I've got it to here. You can kind of see some of the highlights of the stone. I'm going to go over it with some of the polished bone, which is a little bit just this side of being an ivory kind of eggshelly kind of thing. And maybe get a little bit more of that detail to kind of stick out maybe along the top there. Same thing on this side, along that top. A little bit, and a little bit here, and a little bit of this, a little bit of that. I'm using a smaller brush for this, just so I can kind of getting a little bit more control of stuff. Like I said, you know, not everything's going to be perfect. Far from it. Using a little finger blending and stuff like that. I don't know if you can really catch what I'm doing here with this, but it's kind of, I think it's bringing it out. Oh dear. Yeah, the wash will cover that. That's 90% of what I'm going to do. If I make a mistake, yeah, the wash will cover it up. Like maybe go over this a little bit more. Like I said, I wasn't going to do to kind of stand out against the other part of the stone. Like a little bit. It's probably a little bit better stone, a little bit fancier if it's going in a window, especially if it's in a chapel or a fancy home of some sort that has now fallen into disrepair. So I don't know if you can kind of, let's see if I can kind of see. You can't really see. Well, trust me, it's there. So this one, I'm going to go ahead and wash that with the. No, let's wait for that to dry. Again, I'm using Citadel Agrax Earthshade Gloss, because the gloss I think is a little bit more viscous than the other one, and it doesn't bleed into the paint quite as much as some of the non-gloss ones. It's a little stickier, so I'm just going to slap this on here. This may be a little. This will bring out the recesses of the stone sculpts. Like I said, this covers a multitude of sins. If you've got something that you kind of got down where you didn't want it, and you want to cover it up, boy, this is your baby right here. There's different colors you could use. There's also different kind of glaze mediums you could use for that stuff, and that you can get different colors. But this is going to be good enough for what I'm using it for, which is going to be a whole bunch of terrain. I'll do the same on this, and then we'll come back in a minute. Let this dry. Kind of water that down a little bit. Want to spread that pigment out a little bit, and this was not quite as dry as it should have been. Someone got in a hurry, so I am going to close this back up, and I will show you what it looks like. And don't worry about that being a gloss, because I'll go over it with a good can of Tester's Dull Coat. And once this is dry, I will show you how to make the really cool vines on it in a really easy and quick way. Here's my quick and easy vine technique for this. This is I don't know how else this is going to show up on the see, gives that stone a little bit better definition with that Agrex earth shade. Like I said, the gloss kind of keeps it in place where it's supposed to be. So what I'm going to do, I'll show you how to add really cool vines to these things. Is basically what you're going to do. Just take any kind of PVA glue, Elmer's. Good grief, you can get this stuff just anywhere. And I've added some water to it, make it a little bit more fluid, so it comes out a little bit better. I'm just going to add a little bit there. My little handy dandy palette, multi-purpose plastic plate that I got, 3 for $1 at the dollar store. And then all I'm going to do, I'm going to keep some of my flock here and some of this and flock that. And I'm going to take a little bit. I'm going to take my little pointy stick, and I'm going to rub a little bit on there. I'm going to get it. I'm just going to kind of pull it along. I'm going to start a big bunch at the bottom. I'm going to pull it kind of up along the cracks in the stone where those vines would kind of grip in there and get a good grip. And then I'm going to pull it up through here, along here, and I'm going to go against my own judgment. I'm just going to make little strings coming along this way, and a little bit coming along this way as well. All of that is not quite dry, but this is me, and that's just how much I care about it. So, like I said, it's going to be quick and dirty. I'm going to get this thing showed up here. I'll let that kind of sit here. I turn my ceiling fan on to kind of maybe dry this up a little bit. And then what I'm going to do, get all that glue in there, kind of how I want it to go. Maybe a little bit longer along this bottom. And hopefully that stuff that's not quite dry yet is not going to be too much of a problem. So what I'm going to do, I've got just Woodland Scenics blended turf. That's all I'm going to do. I'm going to pour some down on here. Get a nice pile, because what I'm going to do is I'm just going to leave this. I'm not going to pour it across it. I'm going to dip it right on top of that glue. There's the glue bit. I take that and just flip this over here, and it's going to go poof. Kind of tap that off. Add a little bit more here, a little bit more there where it's not quite getting it. And biff bam pow. And I'm going to let that dry. And then I'll probably do the same. And what I'm going to do with anything like this, like any good hobbyist, I don't throw anything away. I've got a little tin where I'm putting all these different flocks that I've used over the last several months. I'm just going to dump it right in there rather than pouring it back in the thing. And maybe, if I want to, yeah, I think I will. Now that I'm sitting here kind of thinking on the fly, I've got some little leaf litter here. I'm going to maybe throw a little bit of that down here. And put a little bit of that on here, see if that'll stick. Maybe. Get just a little bit. Yeah, I'm going to go put that on there. A little bit more. Oh, well, you can see that. How my autofocus is not autofocusing very well. He said. Let's see if that'll get in there. Eventually. There we go. A bit of vines. A little bit of grass on the side. A little bit of some sort of foresty kind of stuff. Just sticking on the side of that. And like I said, I'll go over this. I'll let this dry completely, and I'll gloss or dull coat it. A little bit of Tester's dull coat, and then I'll show you what I have made previously, and show you how it comes out most of the time. These are the results. There's that side, this side. And remember that piece that wasn't quite flush? That's what I did. I just filled it in. up in there, right up along in there. I just ran a little bit up here, make it look like a natural piece of growth coming up to the top there. Just along the top. And if I wanted to, you could run some more across the top. These little things, I'll show you how to do some other time. This little second story that I plagiarized from somebody who did it before I did. There's this little piece here as well. I'm going to chew out my autofocus whenever I shut this thing off. Same thing with this. This is a little bit longer vine. So we get that up in there. Same thing here. It's a little bit heavier. And that's it. That's how you do the stuff that I do, what I've done. And if I get anything else to do, I can I will put it on here hopefully very soon. I'm kind of getting this thing started. Thanks for watching. Hit like and subscribe and all that other good stuff. See you later.